Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands where we're meeting today. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. It is upon their lands that we're meeting. In Australia, our clinicians and teams are committed to providing the very best and safest care. On occasion, things do go wrong and errors are made that lead to poor outcomes for patients, carers and their families. Fortunately, serious clinical incidents are rare and account for less than 2% of all incidents reported to New South Wales Health. In response to incidents, our guiding principles for action are immediacy, accountability, and kindness. We act immediately. We put measures in place to address care needs, reduce risk, and support everyone who is affected. We're open with patients and their families when things go wrong. We seek to learn by reviewing what happened and making changes to improve our system. We share what we find with others to reduce the likelihood of another incident occurring. We put measures in place to meet the needs of our patients, families, and staff. We have an open and just culture that holds people accountable but doesn't place blame. Our focus is on learning. The changes to the Health Administration Act aim to strengthen the process for serious incident management in New South Wales. The key changes include the introduction of a preliminary risk assessment. This also includes the assignment of a dedicated contact person for patients and families involved. There is the separation of findings from recommendations. So the first stage of a review is to find out what happened and why, and the second stage is to develop recommendations. There is the opportunity to co-opt more team members to assist with recommendation development. For example, if a team felt that an IT solution was needed, they may request that a staff member from HealthShare be appointed. And finally, we still have root cause analysis or RCA to review reportable incidents, but there are also more review methodologies that we can use now. I'm going to show you a short video that describes these changes. Let's look at each of the changes in detail. One One of the requirements under the new legislation is the completion of a preliminary risk assessment, or PRA. This is to provide advice to the Chief Executive to guide next steps. The Chief Executive appoints a small team of assessors to undertake an initial assessment, and they must complete a PRA report to be submitted within 72 hours or sooner, if directed by the Chief Executive or Ministry. The PRA team meet as soon as possible. They work through the New South Wales Health PRA report template. They may visit the site where the incident took place, review files, speak to staff, and take photos. Some of their key tasks are to provide an understanding of the events, to ensure outstanding risks are escalated for action, and to ensure immediate notifications are made, such as to the coroner. They can complete the PRA report in IMS Plus Incident Management System. There is also a PRA report template available on the Clinical Excellence Commission website. There's also an action log available to assist teams in tracking the actions arising from the PRA process, although this isn't mandatory. And on completion of the PRA, the team submit the PRA report to the Chief Executive. A dedicated family contact, or DFC, is assigned during the PRA. They're the main point of contact for the family. Some of their key tasks are finding out how a family would like to be communicated with, who's the person that needs to be contacted, and what's the best way of contacting them. Does the family need an interpreter? The DFC can raise family concerns with the health service. The DFC makes sure that the family receives the support they need. They may organise a social worker or assistance with parking or accommodation. The dedicated family contact explains the incident management process to the family, including the scope of the review, the fact that the team are looking at systems and not individual clinicians. They explain the steps that are involved in a review and the expected timeframes. And they also let the family know when there are opportunities to engage with or communicate with the health service, such as engaging with an open disclosure team or with the Serious Adverse Event Review team. During the Serious Adverse Event Review process, there are some defined times at which a dedicated family contact will speak with the family. When the dedicated family contact is first assigned during the preliminary risk assessment, they will introduce themselves to the family. They will then speak to them at particular times during the Serious Adverse Event Review. The family may wish, following the Serious Adverse Event Review, to have ongoing contact. For example, a family may want to know about when and how some of the recommendations are progressing, and contact can be maintained in keeping with the family's wishes. Here's a short video about the dedicated family contact. The second major change is the separation of findings and recommendations. The Serious Adverse Event Review team gathers information from a range of sources and undertakes interviews to find out what happened, what were the contributing factors, and to identify any practices, processes, or systems that could be reviewed. Once the findings are completed, the review team write a findings report which they submit to the Chief Executive. and once approved, those findings can be shared with the family by the open disclosure team. The Chief Executive then decides if a recommendations report is needed, and that recommendations report would then be submitted to the Ministry of Health within 60 calendar days of the incident notification, and the findings report would be submitted alongside it. The third major change is additional experts can be added to the Serious Adverse Event Review team to help prepare the recommendations report. The Chief Executive will decide whether to appoint additional members. The expertise may be a clinician with knowledge of the service, a quality improvement expert, a senior manager. If additional experts are needed, a request is sent to the Chief Executive for approval, and new members are formally appointed. The Serious Adverse Event Review team leader will provide a copy of the findings report to the new members. The final major change is review methodologies that are allowed under the legislation. A serious adverse event review must be completed for all reportable incidents, and in the past, a root cause analysis or RCA was the only type of serious adverse event review allowed. However, the new legislation allows for alternate review methods. So serious adverse event review is an umbrella term, with RCA being one of the review methods. Each review method will have a comprehensive toolkit on the Clinical Excellence Commission website. The toolkits will have everything needed for different review methods, including staff fact sheets, family fact sheets, and step-by-step guides for team leaders. Corporate harm score 1 incidents involve death of a staff member or visitor or complete loss of service. They have similar processes to preliminary risk assessment and serious adverse event review, but not quite the same. Instead of a PRA, there is a safety check. This includes a dedicated family contact being assigned for incidents involving staff death. Following that, instead of a serious adverse event review, there is a corporate harm score 1 review. That was a summary of the key changes to the revised incident management process. Additional information is available on the Clinical Excellence Commission website.